Brett Kavanaugh this morning in the wake of a second allegation of sexual misconduct against him, published now by The New Yorker. It comes just days before both Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford will testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee over Ford's allegation that he sexually assaulted her when they were teenagers. Kavanaugh denies both claims. Axios reports today that Republicans plan to fight, quote, foggy memories of his accusers, noting the plan is to fight back right away and to emphasize denials and hazy recollections. And the mission is to portray the debate as cheap shot politics orchestrated by liberals and abetted by the media. In his letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee today, Kavanaugh once again called the allegations against him smears, pure and simple. White House counselor Kellyanne Conway leveled a similar charge in an interview with CBS this morning.
And I thought that his comment last night about the second so-called accuser is incredibly instructive. He's now calling this a smear campaign. Indeed, this is starting to feel like a vast left-wing conspiracy.
Well, there's a phrase. Anyway, on Capitol Hill today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell carried that argument a step further, pointing the finger at his Democratic colleagues. Let's watch.
Even by the far left standards, this shameful smear campaign has hit a new low. Senate Democrats and their allies are trying to destroy a man's personal and professional life on the basis of decades-old allegations that are unsubstantiated and uncorroborated.
For more, I'm joined by Donna Edwards, a former Democratic congresswoman from Maryland, and Charlie Sykes, contributing editor to the Weekly Standard. Charlie, I'm curious about what you're hearing and what you're thinking about the way this has been handled and how the Republican Party is going to get past this, win or lose, how they're going to look after a vote is held next week, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous moment, but emotions are running very, very high. Obviously, you have some irreconcilable differences here. You have tremendous stakes, and maybe the truth is unknowable. But I will say that there was tremendous blowback to that New Yorker story, and I do think you need to separate that out from Dr. Ford. You know, the fact that there is the evidence is so thin, it is weak tea. And the fact that the New York Times spoke to what they said were dozens of potential witnesses, none of whom could corroborate all of this. So I think that what's happened, at least for the moment, and this is, by the way, dangerous, I think, for the Republicans, is because they are so angry about that, what they regard as a smear, that there is an unusual pressure. Do not cave in. Do not let them get away with all of this. So who knows how that's going to play out over the next several days.
Do you think you can read the Republicans? Do they believe, is it their judgment, that if these stories are true, that the nomination should not be confirmed?
No, I don't think that's what they're saying. Now, obviously, there are some who are willing to say that. But, I mean, obviously, these charges are disqualifying. And obviously, his denials would be disqualifying if, in fact, he did it. But I do think that the second allegation in some ways has had the effect of undermining the credibility of the first one. Because, look, this is the moment where you want solid, credible information that lines up. This is also why I think it's a huge mistake for Republicans not to reopen the FBI investigation. If they are concerned about these false allegations, make people tell them to the FBI. Put some real stakes there. So the fact that they are still reluctant, I think, is somewhat inconsistent with their concern about finding out what, in fact, is true.
Well, Donna, we got the protesters now. Meanwhile, citizens were making their voices heard on Capitol Hill today. Big crowds demonstrated their opposition. There they are to Kavanaugh outside the offices of several Republican senators, including Nebraska's Ben Sasse, Maine's Susan Collins, and Arizona's Jeff Flake. Look at the people. Axios reports that Kavanaugh's future rests partly with Republican Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. But the senator who most worries Kavanaugh supporters is Jeff Flake of Arizona, who's retiring and has ripped Trump and has been ripped by Trump. First of all, there's 3 accusations now developed because of Michael Avenatti. So here we are.
That's right. And here's the thing. If Republicans really wanted to give the Judge Kavanaugh a clean pathway into the Supreme Court, what they would do is open up an FBI investigation. They would start where they started at the beginning, which is to hear Christine Ford, hear Dr. Ford, hear her out. But it seems that they've already come to judgment before that, which raises a question for women all across this country of what does it mean to have a hearing if you've already decided that you're going to plow forward with the investigation?
Well, the New York Times reports that President Trump has privately vented his frustration about the Republican response to the allegation against Kavanaugh, but he remains largely reduced to a spectator, noting, constrained by his party's perilous electoral prospects and the accusation of sexual misconduct he himself has faced in the past, the president is virtually powerless to influence the outcome of perhaps his administration's top priority. Charlie, this thing, the fact they don't want to really have an FBI investigation, they don't want to hear from the guy Judge, Mark Judge, who was apparently a pretty interesting character, to put it lightly, according to the New Yorker piece, a pretty bad guy perhaps. And yet they don't want to hear from him. How do they defend that? Why not bring in the prime witness?
Yeah, I think that's going to have they'll have long-term consequences because, at the moment, they don't want to be rolled by the Democrats. But if they rush ahead and do plow ahead with this and do this confirmation, it will stick with them because people will say, why didn't you know this? Why didn't you slow down to get the facts? Because, look, in a court of law, there's a presumption of innocence, right? You have to prove that somebody is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But in the standard for being on the U.S. Supreme Court also ought to be that you ought to be qualified beyond a reasonable doubt. And if these are, in fact, serious charges, which they are, wouldn't you do everything possible to get as close to the truth as you can? And again, reopening the FBI investigation seems to be the simple no-brainer here. So you have to ask, why are they not doing it? And their failure to do it is going to be very difficult to explain going forward.
Last thought.
Look, I think that this is going to come down to Christine Ford sitting in the Senate and offering her testimony and her believability, her credibility. And I think it ends right there. I'll be surprised if Judge Kavanaugh lasts through the gavel.
I don't think he looks too strong. We'll wait to see how strong she is. But I agree completely with Donna. This is television, live television, daytime television. Everybody's going to make their own judgment.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.